Yo, what's up, Dave? We got our boy Dave, Gin and Juice, and Molly Meltzer back in the cut. It's been a while, friend of the show. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing all right. How are you? How you feeling?
Good. I feel much better. Thank you very much.
Good.
Let me ask you a question. One of the big things that is being argued, and we can use numbers to prove some things, and numbers, now with DVRs and
demos,
streaming, and
there's a million things.
Right. What are we? How much are we seeing of a difference of fan fall off from, let's say, 20 years ago when wrestling was really hot compared to now?
It's impossible. You can, and people have tried to make arguments like in WWE that it's more popular than ever, but it's not.
Right.
It's down. To me, though, the way you really look, the only comparable, because it's like when it comes to TV ratings, everything is way, way down. A TV show that did 10 million viewers 20 years ago would be lucky to do 3 million today. So yeah, WWE's down, but everything but the NFL is down. So it's like you really can't compare when it's straight numbers. And then WWE will say, well, look at all the streaming numbers and the YouTube numbers, and those numbers look like, if you just look at like the numbers, they look absolutely incredible until you find out that most of them are from India. And now a lot of sponsors don't even want you to include India. They want you to block out India. I know Impact, and I'm trying to remember the other, MLW, because Court told me the same thing. They block India because you can't sell at their level. You can't sell advertising because they'll say, your numbers are all from India, so they're all fake because nobody from India buys anything. So it's like it's a weird thing, and also a lot of the way YouTube counts, like people will go, oh my God, they had like 1 million people streaming some video on Raw, worldwide, which they do, but you don't know how long they're streaming, because when they did that show, the Facebook show, WWE did the mixed tag team thing, right? So they would go in there and they would have like, by the end of the week, like 2 million viewers. And it's like, oh my God, that's what Raw and SmackDown do. But later we found out that they averaged like just over a minute of watching. So the actual, if it was translated to a TV rating, it was like 60,000, which for a Raw or SmackDown would be beyond abysmal. It would be beyond abysmal for TNA, for Impact, to be doing 60,000 viewers based on the same measurements. So it's very misleading. It's very misleading. So, but as far as overall popularity, to me, the best way to judge it is, are people coming to the shows? And if they are, then you're okay. And if they're not, then you're not that popular.
Well, isn't the way WWE's fudging their numbers? Isn't one of the things they count as like a quote unquote fan? Is if like you're following a Twitter account of a certain wrestler and they posted a YouTube clip on the thing, and you click that YouTube video on, they're counting that as an engagement of a fan? Like
probably.
If you watch it for like 5 to 10, so that's
5 seconds.
Numbers. Yeah.
Look. They did surveys of how many people are fans. And UFC did the same surveys, and I would look at this, and it was like, in the United States, it was like, I don't even remember the number, but it was a crazy number, like 80 million wrestling fans. And if you have any sense of anything, it's like there are not 80 million pro wrestling fans in the United States when your big shows are doing 2 million viewers. And even if you include people who tune in and out, you're never getting, right. It's nowhere close to 80 million, and never will be.
But as a company, it behooves you to try to fudge anything you can to try to sell your shit to advertisers.
Right. Between advertisers and just the general public, the thing that everyone is doing, like, to me, I always have these. There's two versions of numbers. There's the numbers that I care about, which is how much money you take in, or what your TV ratings are, since that leads to numbers. How many people are going to your shows, real numbers. And then there's, to me, like the fake numbers, which is what unsuccessful companies do, where they will chart out, well, we trended 18 topics on Twitter. Well, what does that mean? It means nothing, because if Twitter numbers and television ratings had a correlation, everybody would be using. In the early days of Twitter, everyone in TV used to look at Twitter numbers and go, oh my God, like this is telling us something, until they found a list of the most popular TV shows, and none of them trended high on Twitter. And the ones that were big on Twitter didn't do shit for ratings.
And I'll give you an example. Wait a second, Dave. I'll give you an example. A lot of new wrestlers right? They'll be like, "Oh, look how many people are following me on social media." I'm like, "Okay, one thing is that somebody's on their computer and they're watching what you're doing, and another thing is that they're buying a ticket to go see you."
Right, they're completely different.
Totally different things, right?
Right. I mean, there's people with giant social media numbers, and you and I both know that people aren't paying to tickets to see them perform. Right. So it's like, but it's good for your brand, right, and it's good for your own marketing. I mean, it is good to have good social media numbers, but you have to
doesn't correlate in somebody buying a ticket,
or even with me, if my social media numbers go up and my subscriptions go down, I'm not in here. Well, my social media's numbers are up. Right. It's just there's something wrong. So forget about the subscriptions. No, it's like follow the money. The money will tell you where you're really going. And if you're really big in things that have nothing to do with money, then it's nice to brag about it, but it's also bullshit. It's a bullshit number.
Well, here's the thing. Perfect example. I don't watch New Japan Wrestling. I follow New Japan and I see their I'll click on a YouTube clip and everything, but I would not consider myself a fan of New Japan Wrestling like we would in the metrics of like social media these days, right? But the thing that's problematic to me is that there's so much social media engagement, which we're looked at it basically advertising for the product, and we still cannot get people to watch the shows. And like every year, we're seeing a gradual decline year by year by year by year.
Well, that's in TV ratings. Yeah, in TV ratings it is, but there's people watching other ways. The thing is, it's like
I'm aware of that.
I mean, it's like if wrestling was the only thing. Okay, if wrestling was the only thing declining, I would say, oh my God, this is terrible. But like if wrestling is top 5 of the night on cable, which it is very often, that's not bad either. If it was like I was looking back, whatever it was somebody had actually sent me something, and it was when Raw was doing 4 million viewers, and they were like between number 5 and number 8 on Monday night in the ratings. There were all kinds of shows beating them. Now, unless it's the
what shows though?
Whatever the shows were in those days that were popular. I don't remember the shows. I just would see like 18 to 49, 8th place, overall viewers 6th place, things like that for the night. And it's like now they're number 1, but their actual number is way, way down. So they're not doing badly. If you're number 1 for the night, and obviously during football season they aren't and they never will be. But aside from the NFL, they're beating almost everything. So they're not doing bad. I mean, could they be doing better? Yes. If they were selling out all their buildings like they were in the late 90s, that would tell me they're hot. And they're not doing that. So Dave, they're not as hot as they once were.
Dave, before I forget, because I've been wanting to ask you this question for a long time. So I don't understand something. Why is SmackDown so radically different and better than Raw when you would think they have the same writers? And if they don't have the same writers, they have the same editor, which is Vince and Bruce. Why?
Yeah. I think some of it's 3 hours versus 2 hours, as much as anything else. The 3 hours is too long, and everyone knows it, but they're getting paid too much money to go back. But yeah, I mean, to me, like,
but the show's not good.
Well, right? It always feels like it's repeats. SmackDown does too, though. But SmackDown, it's not as long, so you don't notice it as much.
No, SmackDown is great. SmackDown, the Roman Reigns thing, best story in wrestling.
Roman Reigns is very good. Yeah.
Kevin Owens shit is good. The Rey Mysterio shit is good. Like, SmackDown's a good show. You can watch it, and they cut out a lot of the corniness. But Raw continues to just have really bad shows, distraction finishes, 50-50 booking.
Well, they do 50-50 booking across the board. I mean, the booking itself is the same, but it's just okay. So SmackDown has more compelling characters,
right?
And doesn't drag because, like in Raw, they got to get these guys and they got to fill up 3 hours with them, and you're never going to have consistently good 3-hour television shows. I just don't think that's possible.
Because this is a philosophical difference the way you watch these shows and when me and Konnan watch these shows, right? Is I think that the different lens that we look through this stuff through is viewed as that. Me and Konnan have watched professional wrestling over the years, but when wrestling has gotten very bad, we've quit watching. Like, we know the breaking points. Like, I can't watch this.
Yeah, right? I know it too. Believe me, you've
never actually practiced that.
I can't quit. I can't quit for my job. But if there are certainly would be times in my life when things are going on in my life where if it was not my job, would I be doing other things? I would watch some wrestling shows. I wouldn't watch as much as I do because I would do family stuff. But I mean, it's my job. So I got to watch Raw. I got to watch SmackDown. And sometimes I like it. And Monday, it's funny with Raw. Monday. It's just my frickin' Monday routine for the last 100 years. Is that Monday? I watch Raw. So it's just kind of like
a habit.
It's a habit. It's not even saying. So like you look at that number, and I look at that Raw number, and you go like, oh my God! Sometimes the show is so brutal. How do so many people watch? And it's like they watch because they watch. It's like. A lot of times people will watch something like that, like a soap opera or whatever, even when it gets bad, because it's just what they do.
They're drug addicts. They're addicted to the
Creatures
show.
of habit.
They can't get away.
But
right.
Disco, you're addicted to watching the NFL on Sunday, right? Even if it's
everybody
a
watches
shitty game,
the NFL.
Right? Dave, I wanted to ask real quick, since we were talking about SmackDown, who specifically is writing and helping Roman with his stuff? Because that's the stuff that we usually talk about on here, and people realize is some of the best stuff on TV right now.
Heyman's got a big handle on everything that you see him in.
Yeah.
So he probably would be the key guys. But I mean, it's just the main, Koski and all that. It's the writing team, that. Yeah. But I mean, the difference between Roman stuff, I think that a lot of that is probably Heyman, because I always see his fingerprints on certain aspects of everything that Roman does, even his finishes and everything, and the layout of his matches. I can go, that's Paul Heyman. I mean, do
you not see that content is by far the best stuff on TV right now? Do you think it's
Roman?
Me and Konnan look at that, and we think that is the template for the way wrestling should be presented. You have serious characters.
Yep.
Acting very well in their backstage segments and performing in the ring.
But how many people can do that? The thing with them is that it's like everything is built towards them. They have the family dynamic. It's presented as a real life soap opera as opposed to corny stuff that you don't believe. So yeah, that's all good. Having said all that, they have their same ups and downs as everything. I mean, Friday's a hard night anyway, and right now with the NBA, I mean, the one thing that is different now with the wrestling as compared to the past is that when wrestling is really hot, it can go against the NFL and the NBA, and it'll be hurt, but it won't be hurt bad. And now we're in a position where, like, NBA playoffs come and everybody just gets nailed with record low numbers because NBA is just a level above pro wrestling right now. Whereas before, when it came to television, it wasn't necessarily like that. I think, and some of that has to do with, probably the personalities in the NBA. Even though the NBA lost like its big drawing cards already in the playoffs, it's still the NBA.
There's a lot of young guys, and mixed in with like the James Hardens and the CP3s, and now Trae Young, and you know what I'm saying. Like there's a lot of young guys coming. Like Luka Doncic over in Dallas, and there's a lot of young, really good guys now. Joel Embiid. You know what I'm saying?
That's what you need.
Yeah.
And we need that. We needed that in wrestling. And look, everybody knows that. I mean, The key to wrestling going forward is not regurgitating 40-year-old guys. It's like finding, that's what you've been doing for 30 years, right? Finding these 18-year-old guys that are unique and exposing them for the first time. I mean, that's always where it's going. And it always will be.
This is something that me and Konnan talk about a lot on the show, and I don't know what your take is on this, if you see the same stuff that we do. But the one thing, like, we always reference that Variety article. The Variety article said basically like 80% of the fans that have watched wrestling in like the past 20 years, like 80% of them do not watch anymore. And the number one reason that they weren't watching was because it's too cartoonish. And then we watch
all this cartoonish stuff, right?
Exactly. So that's my point.
Yeah,
but across all the shows, that's what I'm saying. Across 9 hours of television,
yeah, I know.
There's so much cartoonish element in the shows between Alexa Bliss when Miro was fighting over the video games and the backstage conversations. There's so much corny, cartoonish stuff that it's hard for the casual fan to get back invested in this product as a whole. Would you agree with that?
Sometimes, but it's funny. I'm absolutely not a fan of the Alexa Bliss stuff, yet. They did that last week in the main event segment, and hour 3 held up better than usual. And from a video standpoint, YouTube standpoint, I think it was, except for Roman Reigns, it was the biggest stuff of the week. Wow. Yeah. So it's kind of like you kind of got to watch. It's like, the one thing, and Paul Bosch actually told me this once, this would have been going back early 80s. And he said, like, if you ask wrestling fans exactly what they want and you give it to them, they won't come. And he goes, and I don't know why. But it's like, I've learned that. And it's like, I would put stuff in the programs and ask questions. And then I would try to listen, and it goes, but you got to listen to the box office. If the box office goes up, then you're doing good. If the box office goes down, you're doing bad. And one time he goes like, I put in a thing where it was like, what match do you most want to see? And it was like a match. And it was actually the top two baby faces at the time against each other. Because in that era, as you probably guys know, they didn't do babyface matches because it didn't have that dynamic. So he goes, well, maybe the fans know more than me. He booked the match and didn't draw. And he just goes, the thing that he basically pushed to me is yes, you have to listen to the fan reaction at the shows, of course, but you have to know where you're going, and you're leading the parade and the fans are following. If you listen to them and have them dictate, all they're going to want to see is now. They're going to want to see the babyface win now, and you're not going to have the drama. So it's a very difficult thing. I mean, I try to look at, when things are going bad and where they're going bad, I kind of look at that.
It's like, but you know, it's like the hardcore fans, because the hardcore fans, they're very vocal, but they're the minority, and they're going to be there anyways, and they're going to be there anyway. Yeah. And I said this story, but it bears repeating because I don't think I've ever said it to you, Dave. So the guy that invented that, that gaming thing, Wii, you know how it's very easy, right? So like all the hardcore fans were saying, oh, it's too easy, nobody's going to like it, why are you doing this? But it became the biggest seller that he ever had. And he said, if I would have listened to the hardcores, I wouldn't have made this, Right. So he was listening, you got to listen to the masses. You know? But the thing, and WWE does incredible amounts of market research, but even so, they've been doing that for 5 years, and have they stumbled onto it? Like I said, wrestling is doing fine and they're making tons of money, but are we in a hot period for wrestling? No, we're not, because we'll know if we're in a hot period when they come to, your city and you can't get tickets, or it's pretty sold out. And when people start wearing wrestling T-shirts too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you go public, because it's funny. I rarely see wrestling T-shirts in public, but it's not like I don't see them, but I don't see them a lot. And when wrestling's really hot, you see them everywhere you go. That's why I thought it was wrestling. You'll see wrestling rise when the reviews are meant positively and the numbers are going up. That's a basic formula. Yeah, I want to go back to what we said here about the Alexa, and this is problematic, I think, for the product. The Alexa Bliss thing did a number, right? So it's like, so people are attracted. So that's why they keep going to it. That's why they're going to keep going to it. Here's my point. We've had these conversations like every month. They do something ridiculous. It may draw numbers, everything, but we're back at the point where we were even lower than the point that we were before that week happened. 4 weeks from now, do you think the number is going to be lower or higher? Oh, it's going to be higher because there's no NBA, so we can't even compare. No. I think it's absolutely going to be lower. I think we're continuing. No. Once the NBA is over, they'll be up, and then they'll go down again against the Olympics, and then Monday's going to go down in football season. It happens every year. I don't think that has anything to do with the actual drive of the content of the business. I think it has to do with whether or not the content is cartoonish. Because you could try to draw people in and stuff, and they'll get eyeballs, they'll do something outside the box. But it's very difficult to watch Raw as a grown man and watching these conversations. But you gotta remember, Disco. Not everybody that watches Raw is a grown man. There's a lot of kids and nerds that like that shit. I'm not a fan of the hocus pocus, but here's the thing. I mean, one of the things about the last, whatever it's been, 15 months, and I always tell people this, because it's like you can look at TV ratings, but they're number one, they're estimates. They're not real. But the key is that you don't know what's working, because the big part of what's working or not is when you go in front of that live audience and you see what they react to. And we've gotten none of that feedback. And we'll start in July with WWE, and we've just kind of started with AEW. So that's when we're going to have like a lot better idea. If Alexa Bliss goes and does this stuff, and everyone's sitting on their hands, and people will then WrestleMania, didn't they? What? I thought we already had a driver. Yeah. We had WrestleMania, and that led to Tamina and Natalya getting tag team titles because everybody was chanting for Tamina out of like irony or whatever. But they took that and they went with it, So it's like they listened. I mean, if they had done the same thing in the world title, would they have listened? No, because the women's tag team title is not a big deal. And it's like, well, if the fans want these guys, let's give it to them. If the fans all wanted, a new champion or something like that, it'd be harder to move them. But I mean, like, look, Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan got championships that they never would have given them without the fans. And even Becky Lynch, like if Nia Jax hadn't broken her nose and she didn't get so popular in her promos coming off the broken nose, she wouldn't be the big women's star of the last couple of years. They would have gone with, with Charlotte Flair. Isn't that kind of funny to you, Dave, that a company that never listened to its fan now does?
Well, they have to. They're humbled a little bit. I mean, but they for a long time were not only didn't listen, but they would fight. It was a fight for.
Right.
I would watch wrestling. Like I would say, if I go back 3-4 years ago, one of the most fascinating things when I would watch wrestling is, and I would tell people this, and I don't think they would get it, but I would tell it to Konnan, and obviously he's going to get it. Is you can feel that there is a fight between the fans in the building and the company on who's really in charge. And then because of that fight, the fans in the building got more and more vocal about what they both liked and didn't like. And the people in charge, would start like rationalizing and doing the Bizarro Land or the one where, and people in wrestling say this all the time, and they're not necessarily wrong. That it's like, well, those people who are making the most noise, they're not representative of everybody. And maybe they are and maybe they aren't, but it's always a good one to say when they tell you something that you don't want to hear. So everything's a weird dynamic.
But it was big enough, Dave. It was big enough that they started their own competition and they all went to AEW. Like a lot of those AEW fans are bands that were in WWE were pissed off, like what they did to CM Punk or what they did to Bryan Danielson or what they did. You know what I'm saying? They just got tired of being screwed over.
And I think some of them also just wanted to see a different style of wrestling. And there's a lot of weird dynamics that got into AEW. It's like there's 20 different things that had to happen that, like they had like about a 9-month period to have it happen. And it would be very difficult to replicate it. I mean, when I look back, like if AEW does end up making it and we look back at that first year, I mean, the story of so many things falling into place, not everything fell into place, but enough fell into place because it easily could have never gotten off the ground. I mean, they needed the TV. They needed the guy with the money. They needed a bunch of marketable guys who were going to be free agents that weren't really, and they weren't WWE guys because really, except for Moxley, there was no WWE guy. Jericho was already kind of he wasn't under contract to WWE anymore. He was a WWE guy, but he'd already gone to Japan. So he was already his 100%. Yeah, his 100% loyalty to WWE had waned because, he was frustrated because one year he was supposed to be in the main event at WrestleMania and all of a sudden it was the second match on the show. And he kind of saw that like Vince is going with younger people and no matter if I out-talk everyone or whatever, I'm slotted at a certain level. And then, in New Japan, he went there and they treated him like he was a superstar. Mm-hmm. And then with AEW, I think he recognized that he could have the run of the place and get the angles that he wants and wrestle the way he wants. And he's not going to be micromanaged. And it actually it led to him falling back in love with wrestling.
And remember, Vince hated that match too.
I want to debate something real quick. Me and Konnan are obviously going to be on the other side of this. You'll be on your side. You've been critical of like your perception of Cross, right?
Not. Let
me give you my summation of what we see him as a character compared to what you see, right? Mm-hmm. So what I see WWE doing producing, if you think about like Luthez, Dory Funk Jr., back in the old days of professional wrestling, the champion was like a shooter.
Harley,
the guy that like, okay, you can't.
Yeah. Of course, okay. you want the top guy to be the toughest guy. Sure.
So what you're seeing is the 2021 WWE production machine, production of a character that is a shooter and is undefeated, right? And that's what I see the thing. So the problem that like I see like a lot of the criticism of him is like you can't take a guy like him and just look at his matches and think, okay, that defines his character. Because what Cross does, and there's a lot of guys that are not good at this, and some guys that are. He's a great content creator in professional wrestling. If you give him a vignette, he kills it. If you give him a promo, he kills it. All this stuff leading up to the match, all the things that get the people interested, I think he's one of the best in the business at it. But unfortunately, there's always this mindset of like this mob mentality, this echo chamber in wrestling. If his match isn't up to quote unquote these modern day standards, he gets shit on, and I think it hurts.
Well, whatever
what we're trying to do with a guy like him that helps the wrestling business to get more suspension disbelief back into the business. Go ahead.
I thought that the promo stuff that he's done for the Finn Balor match was great, but then there was the match, and then there was the ratings of the match, and it's like you kind of have to. It's like if I think something's great and it didn't work, I got to figure out why did it not work, and there's like. if this guy, like when Roman Reigns came back, if you don't like him, and a lot of people don't, the fact is that numbers picked up. Now, yes, are they lower than they were when he came back? Yes, but and part of that's NBA, of course, too. But the NXT. The
NXT audience is a smart mark audience of the WWE universe. It's not like that's not the audience you want to cater to. It's like I don't really look at that as
if that's the problem, then hopefully when he goes to the main roster, it'll be different. But I can say like the cross match with Balor, I mean, it did, with weeks of promotion. I mean, it did a not good number, and that was and I thought the promotion was great. I thought they were going to do a great number, and they didn't. And that's with Balor, who is, of all the guys in NXT, the one with the most name value by far of anyone that's there. So it's not like he was in there with Kyle O'Reilly, who you can go as, well, Kyle O'Reilly is a great wrestler, but nobody's going to pay to see him type of a thing. If someone would say that. I didn't say that, but people will take that out of context. But I mean, I'm just throwing out a name. Yeah. Or it's like, if a guy, to me, it's like if you
the whole ratings war thing of you guys talking about competing against a show that's looked at as their developmental AAA farm team that doesn't have a lot of name guys on the show, and we're still trying to talk about like the ratings for that show are kind of relevant. I don't see it like that. That's a show that's like you're not going to tune in and like every week I can't miss.
But they were hot shotting every week to compete. So you can say that, but WWE didn't put them on in that time slot to lose. Vince McMahon did not get in a fight to lose a fight. He didn't care.
Honestly, I don't.
If he didn't care, he would have moved them to Tuesday right away to get out of there. So no, he cared. He wouldn't have signed guys he wouldn't have signed journeyman guys to $900,000 a year deals if he didn't care. He obviously cared. I mean, it's like
fascinating how much guys get paid these days and how much the network.
Yeah. You know why they get paid? Because they get paid because there's alternatives to go. If there was no alternatives, these guys wouldn't be getting paid. That's what changed the whole industry. And that's what the first time that salaries went way up was when WCW finally could compete on a decent level with WWF. And WWF had kept the salaries down. And finally, when WCW started paying real money, Vince had to start paying real money because he was going to lose everybody. And that's...
Do you think the networks
bro,
are
same thing happened in Mexico, bro. Arena Mexico had to pay money because AAA was paying money.
Yeah. Do you think the networks are making mistakes investing this much into this product right now when it's every year we're just grasping at trying to get the casual fans that they want?
Look at what they're paying for NASCAR. I mean, not even NASCAR, but NASCAR's declining. NASCAR's declining much fast. NASCAR's declining much faster than wrestling, although it's still doing well. But
would you agree with that? Like the networks are the money marks.
Well, the networks
they're the ones that are paying the money for like
the networks are under the impression that the future of television is live sports entertainment, and wrestling isn't quite sports, but it's close. But I mean, look at the NHL just signed a deal for what was it? Oh, like triple, and their ratings have declined more. Their ratings. Yeah. There's weeks where the Wednesday when they would go against the wrestling, where they would be getting under 300,000 viewers, and they got triple the money, and they got way more. And soccer, because of the idea that the mentality of soccer is that a lot of the audience is younger, which it is. Soccer skews very young, but also affluent, and perhaps it is. I don't know. But soccer per audience member gets 9. Well, I shouldn't say it now. At one point when the soccer ad rates and the wrestling ad rates per capita, it was like a soccer fan was worth 9 times more than a wrestling fan. That gap is probably slowed because I saw that when I was teaching, and that was probably 4 or 5 years ago. But it was fascinating to me that like an advertiser considers a soccer. If I'm a soccer fan, which I am, and I'm a wrestling fan, I'm worth 9 times as much to the station watching the soccer game than I am the wrestling game. And one of the fascinating things was, and was with Spike, what they would do with the wrestling, because if you remember, TNA would precede Bellator, that they couldn't sell the ads very well for TNA, but they could for Bellator. So if they could get those wrestling fans to watch Bellator afterwards, then the wrestling fans had far more value to them than just being wrestling fans. So that was part of the marketing strategy with Spike years ago.
Was it the basketball gets like 1.9 to 2 billion a year from the TV net from TNT and ESPN and
They get
wrestling
ridiculous numbers.
At a high number is 400,000. It seems like an astronomical number. Then you hear the NBA gets $2 billion, and you're looking at the ratings.
The NFL
why
gets
on
11.
earth is this an equation?
The NFL gets 11 billion.
Bro, it happened back in the
Jesus.
day. Remember, Dave? We were beating the Atlanta Hawks in ratings, but they were getting
Jordan's
way more money
comeback
than we
game
were.
on TNT. His comeback game promoted everything, did not even beat Nitro that week. So
they could sell the ads for probably 4 times as much money. So what is it? Which is again part of the equation too. But I mean, look, these networks, the premium thing, and it's always going to be that, is going to be the NFL and the NBA. I mean, that's just what it's going to be. So they're always going to get the money.
Hey, we got to wrap up. You want to promote your stuff?
Yeah, just Wrestling Observer newsletter. You can go to www.wrestlingobserver.com. It covers all of the news every week, and we do audio shows. Brian Alvarez and I, Garrett Gonzalez and I do great shows every Friday night. And then got the newsletter, which covers the business in more detail than anything else. All over the world, Japan, Mexico, try to cover everything.
Yo, man, check out. I don't think there's anybody in the business that doesn't know about it or hasn't read about it, but we do have a lot of new fans. Check out The Observer. I can tell you, I learned more from The Observer than just about any other wrestler in the industry. So check that out.
And I want to say, too, that our fans are going to be disappointed that we didn't have a knockdown drag-out. But like I said, I've always had respectful conversations with them. It's good having a good conversation.
Cool,
about
no problem.
business. That's the way it should be going forward with everybody.
Yeah.
So.
Dave, thank you for stopping by. Hope to have you on soon again.
Okay, cool. We got to get you on time on a show soon too.
For sure.
Okay,
All right.
cool.
Take care, Dave.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, bye.